Hello, fellow Trekkies and Trickers. Well, welcome to Star Trektember 2018. And this month, I'm going to be taking a look at every single episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, aka the first Star Trek show that I remember watching. So, let's kick things off with the very first episode, Encounter at Farpoint. In 2364, the newest flagship of the United Federation of Planets, Starfleet's USS Enterprise, travels to the planet Deneb 4 for its maiden voyage. Enterprise is to open relations with the simple Bandy people who have somehow been able to tap immense energy reserves and construct Farpoint Station, much to the surprise of the Federation. En route, the Enterprise is met by an omnipotent being who identifies himself as Q, a member of the Q Continuum, and declares that humanity is being put on trial, posing an appearance as a Grand Inquisitor, and deciding that their actions in their upcoming mission will be used to judge their worthiness and determine their fate as a race. Before letting the ship resume its course, Q warns Captain Picard that he is destined to fail. Dun dun dun. As the Enterprise arrives, the crew members explore the offerings of Farpoint Station and establish relations with their Bandy host, Grappler Zorn. The crew becomes suspicious when items they desire seem to appear out of nowhere moments later, and are unable to identify the power source that feeds the station. Deanna Troi, an empath, senses a being with powerful yet despairing emotions nearby, and the crew discover a strange labyrinth beneath the station, but Zorn does not offer an explanation. As the Enterprise crew continues its explorations, a large unknown alien craft enters orbit and begins to fire upon an older Bandy settlement near Farpoint Station and abducts Zorn. Before Picard orders the ship's phasers to be fired at the craft, Q appears to remind him of humanity's trial and prompts Picard to send an away team to the alien craft. The away team discovers the craft has passages similar to those under Farpoint Station, and they are able to free Zorn. Their actions cause the alien craft to transform into a jellyfish-like space creature, and Picard is able to deduce the mystery of Farpoint Station. He confirms with the apologetic Zorn that the Bandy found a similar life form injured on their planet, and, while attempting to care for it, they also exploited its ability to synthesize matter to create Farpoint Station. The creature now in orbit is trying to help free its mate by attacking those who held it captive. Eh boy. Though Q goads Picard into punishing the Bandy, Picard refuses, instead ordering the Enterprise to fire a vivifying energy beam onto Farpoint Station after the station is evacuated. The beam allows the land-bound creature to transform back into its jellyfish-like form and flies into orbit to join its fellow being. As the crew watches their reunion of the alien creatures, Q reluctantly tells Picard that they have succeeded in their test, but hints they will meet again. Bum bum bum. Let's just say that Q will definitely run to the Enterprise D crew again. So anyway, let's look at some production elements here. The new Star Trek series was announced on October 10, 1986, by the head of Paramount Television Group, Mel Harris. He announced that the creator of Star Trek, Gene Roddenberry, was to be executive producer and lead the creation of the new series. It was the second attempt at creating a new live-action television series based on Star Trek for Paramount. Production on the previous attempt in 1977, called Star Trek Phase 2, became Star Trek the Motion Picture. When the decision was made not to proceed with the Paramount Network, it had been slated to be the flagship before, and interest in a new movie was piqued after the release of Star Wars. Paramount had pitched ideas to Roddenberry earlier in 1986, as it was the 20th anniversary of the original series, but Roddenberry turned them down and initially didn't want to do a new series. He later said, quote, "It was only when the Paramount people agreed with me and said a sequel was probably impossible that my interest was piqued." All four major networks turned down the new Star Trek series, as they were not willing to commit to a 26-hour first season with a guaranteed unchanging time slot as well as a promotional campaign for the new show. The team proceeded with the project with the backing of Paramount. Roddenberry began putting together a production crew which included colleagues who had worked with him on the original series, including Robert H. Justman, David Gerrold, Eddie Milkis. Justman proposed 3 ideas to the others on October 17th, including families aboard the ship, a concept which later became the holodeck and both an android and a Klingon character. One idea discussed by the production team was for Deanna Troi to have 3 breasts, to which writer D.C. Fontana objected. Yeah, I would probably jump to that too. Fontana, who briefly worked on a number of episodes of the original series, was tasked with writing the script for the pilot. The director's team met in full for the first time on February 18, 1987, having received the first draft of Fontana's script a few days earlier. The original premise involved the Enterprise and the USS Starseeker approaching an alien life form captured by a race called the Anoi and turned into a weapon. After the Anoi told the Starfleet ships to surrender, the Starseeker opened fire and was destroyed, while Troy contacted the alien and convinced it to crash on a nearby planet so that the Enterprise can help it to free itself, along with rescuing the other prisoners the Anoi were using as slaves on the surface. Despite numerous changes taking place to the plot before the final version, some of the introductions for various characters made it through to the final version. The plot involving Q was added subsequently to the episode in order to make it longer. Roddenberry was aiming for an hour-long pilot, but Paramount wanted a 2-hour show and eventually went out. Other items were also added in order to lengthen the episode, including the saucer separation sequence and the appearance of Admiral Leonard McCoy. Wonder how that happened. Yeah. Roddenberry realized early on that a series with the original crew from Star Trek was unlikely to be practical, nor did he want to recast the roles or have a retread crew, a series of different characters in very similar roles to the original series. He explained, quote, "I would hate to think our imagination is so slender that there aren't other possibilities to think about." The first casting call was sent out on December 10, 1986. While some characters, such as Geordi LaForge and Beverly Crusher, remain recognizable from their descriptions in the initial casting call, others have clear differences. Julien Picard relapsed into a French accent when he became emotional, and Data was non-Caucasian. Macha Hernandez was a Latino security chief based on Jeanette Goldstein's role in Aliens, while Deanna Troi was to appear foreign, or more specifically of an Icelandic or Scandinavian nature. Leslie Crusher was listed as a 15-year-old girl with a photographic memory, although it was quickly changed to a male teenager called Wesley. Justman argued for a female teenager, but Roddenberry thought that there would be a greater number of storylines available if the character was male. Why did he think that? Patrick Stewart was cast in the role of Jean-Luc Picard after Justman saw him perform at the University of California, Los Angeles. Roddenberry insisted that he wanted a French actor in the role, but Justman arranged a meeting between Stewart and the production team to introduce the actor, and later Berman supported the casting. Fontana thought that American actor Stephen Mock would be better in the role. Justman wanted Stewart in the show in some capacity, and with Roddenberry still posing him as Picard, Justman suggested that he might be a good fit instead for Data. Because Roddenberry couldn't find an actor he preferred more for Picard, he relented and changed his concept of Picard to better fit Stewart. Although Stewart was willing to put on an American accent to portray the role of Picard, the producers asked him to use his natural accent instead. Good idea. They also tested him with a hairpiece, thought that it would look, quote, awful. Stewart was pleased to have received the role, saying that his children were impressed with the new part, and praised their mythos for the show, saying, quote, "The great strength of Star Trek is its epic classic feel. For an actor in my background, it has more richness and depth than you might expect on television." Roddenberry's favorite for Riker was Jonathan Frakes, who went through 7 auditions before claiming the role. Despite the second choice of the casting team, he was hired after their first choice was unimpressive in his auditions. LeVar Burton had worked with Justman on another pilot for a series called Emergency Room, and was suggested to apply for the role of LaForge. For U.S. audiences, he was the most well-known actor in the cast, due to his role in Roots. Gates McFadden and Brent Spiner gained the parts of Beverly Crusher and Data respectively through the normal audition process. Eric Menyuk had also been considered for the part of Data, and would later be cast as the recurring character of the Traveler in 3 subsequent episodes. Justman later said that he was the only one out of the production team who preferred Menyuk in the role. I don't know, I kind of prefer Brent Spiner, but that's just me. Marina Sirtis auditioned for the role of Macha Hernandez, while Denise Crosby auditioned for the part of Deanna Troi. They both gained the parts with the approval of Berman and Justman, but Roddenberry switched the roles of the actresses as he thought Sirtis would be better suited for the role of ship's counselor. Macho Hernandez was rewritten to become Tasha Yar to better suit Crosby. The role of Worf required a black actor in order to make the Klingon makeup easier to apply, and was expected to be only a recurring character. But following the casting of Michael Dorn and his work in Encounter Farpoint, the role was expanded. Will Wheaton was cast as Wesley Crusher, despite what he perceived as an awful first callback. DeForest Kelley, who played the appearance of DeForest Kelley as Leonard McCoy was kept a secret, with the character only being referred to in scripts as Admiral. While Roddenberry wanted Kelley to appear, he thought that the actor would turn him down. The two had lunch together, and Roddenberry suggested the appearance, with Kelley agreeing not only to appear, but also that he wouldn't take any more than the Screen Actors Guild base salary for the part. He later said, quote, "I just wanted the scale. Shall it be my way of saying thank you to Gene for the many good things he has done for me?" John Delancey deliberately missed his first audition as Q, as he was appearing as lead in a play at the time. A second audition was arranged during lunchtime so that he could attend. He later said that after he auditioned, quote, "A big guy walked out, put his hands on my shoulder and said, 'You make my words sound better than they are.' I said, 'Well, you must be the writer.' And he said, 'I'm Gene Roddenberry.' I had absolutely no idea who that was." Cole Meany was cast in the part of the con ensign on the ship's battle bridge, and after a further appearance in the episode Lonely Among Us, his character was given the name Miles O'Brien in Season 2. Ah, yes, the same character that would then go on to be in Deep Space Nine. The cast was announced on May 15, 1987. There was a certain degree of uncertainty regarding job security during the pilot for the main cast, as they did not hear until after production had wrapped that the show would be picked up for a further 13 episodes. Due to what was seen as a low budget for the pilot and series in general, the existing sets and equipment from the Star Trek movies were reused in the new show. Milkus and Justman were given the task of reviewing the standing sets from the movies on the Paramount lot in order to see what they could use. The duo would later recall that one stage was so completely covered with cat feces, due to the number of cats living on the lot, that the pair couldn't walk on the set. Certain sets were reused, including a redress at the Enterprise's bridge from Star Trek III The Search for Spock, to act as the Enterprise's battle bridge in the new series. The main engineering set from Star Trek III became the new engineering set, albeit with the command console from Star Trek IV added, as well as two walls from sickbay from Star Trek III. The rest of the sickbay set became the observation lounge during the first season. Some of the sets contained components from both Star Trek the Motion Picture and the unfilmed Star Trek Phase 2. After running tests with the company for computer-generated special effects, it was decided that, for the sake of reliability, Industrial Light and Magic would produce the new models of the Enterprise at a cost of $75,000 for a 6-feet and a 2-feet version. ILM was also integral to the development of the Jump to Warp special effect, which resulted in the company remaining on the show's end credits throughout its entire run. Filming of Encounter Farpoint began at the Paramount lot on May 29, 1987, and wrapped on June 25th. Will Wheaton noted that during the filming of Encounter Farpoint, most of the cast believed that the series would not last more than a year. well, let's just say that, that didn't happen. Anyway, so overall, this is a pretty good first episode for the new Star Trek show, and it is kind of cheesy in some points, but hey, at least it's not as cheesy as it was back in the 1960s, am I right? So, overall, I give Encounter Farpoint 3 warp cores out of 5. Well, join me sometime sooner or later on today as we take a look at The Naked Now. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.